And welcome on in, everybody, to another edition of the Auburn Undercover podcast here on the Auburn Undercover YouTube channel live tonight. Tonight, Monday being Monday, December 2nd, a little scatterbrained as we are getting ready for signing day. We are on signing day eve, 2 days away. But Jason, it is almost time to put a bow on the 2025 class. It feels crazy to think that we're at this point of signing day. These recruiting cycles, I mean, they last longer and longer now just because of how early they start recruiting guys. I mean, you think about a guy like Malik Autry. He's been committed since February of 2023. We've interviewed him 20 times. We've talked to him a million times. Feel like we've watched the kid grow up over the past couple of years, and now it's time for all of these guys to put a bow on things.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously a lot to talk about in terms of potential things, but we've seen some things happen in the last few days, and I actually mentioned some of those things today. Obviously, while we're getting ready for Saturday's game, Tavares Dice, flips and goes to Florida, and then you see today, like Missouri loses a 5-star offensive tackle. We've seen all these things are happening, and I said today, I was like, these coaches are just ready for Monday to get over with, and I was thinking Wednesday, but I was like, it's already so much is happening, and there's so much going on that it feels like the days have kind of compressed already. But honestly, normally get to this time of year, you have a pretty good feel for all but maybe 2 or 3 guys. I have a pretty good feel for most of these guys, but you just don't know what happens at the last minute. Somebody going, hey, here you go. We lost all our guys, and we're going to give you XXX, or hey, here's an opportunity. I mean, it's never been more unpredictable than it is right now, in my opinion. I think it's as unpredictable as it's ever been, and I think every coach in the country will be taking a huge deep breath Wednesday. Some of them may be taking a bunch of breaths and panicking if it goes bad, but I think it's going to be a crazy next, I don't know, 40 hours or so to see how this thing gets going.
Yeah, these 2 days are the longest 2 days of the year every year. It doesn't matter when signing day is, doesn't matter if it's December 4th, December 20th, like last year, whatever. The 2 days leading up, once you get through that weekend and then it goes dead, and then you have a couple days to lead into signing day, it is just forever. It takes forever. Coaches have anxiety. You have anxiety because you're trying to get it right. You're trying to make sure that you keep everyone informed. And like you said, it's so unpredictable. I mean, 2 months ago, who could have predicted Florida to be the hottest team in college football going into signing day?
Yeah, they flipped, I don't know, 8-9 guys in the past week and a half or so. And it's going pretty crazy for them. And one of those, obviously, a very familiar name, Christian, guy that we talked to, a guy that I guess 9 days ago left Auburn after the Texas A&M game, was like, hey, I'm good. Everything's good. And less than a week later, everything changed.
Yeah, and that's just the way things go. Look, you're going after guys. Schools are going after your guys if they're good ones, and Auburn has a lot of good ones. So that was kind of just a little intro to the show. The main part of the show is going to be y'all in the YouTube chat here joining us tonight. We want to answer your guys' questions. We want to talk about whatever you guys want to hear. Obviously, the topics are going to be mostly recruiting, maybe a little transfer portal here and there as well. I see some Auburn basketball in the chat, but that is not on the docket for tonight. We'll get to that. Nathan can touch on that on Wednesday or something after the Duke game. But there is some content at auburnundercover.com for basketball, of course.
Yeah, that's just not a couple of days, obviously, heading into that huge game Wednesday night.
Yeah, that's just not the point of the show. So this is honestly a perfect one. Controlled chaos incoming. Yes.
I don't know that it's controlled. I think it's just chaos. You have some control over it, and to give people maybe a peek behind the curtain a little bit. I think it'd be fun to let people know how this day goes for us. Because it's changed a whole lot. And Christian, for you, you kind of know how it's gone, and it's been kind of the same. But, the days of fax machines and sitting around waiting for a fax to come in and making sure it got cleared and all these things are over with. Now guys can sign, they can take a picture on their phone, they can text it to Auburn, and it's legal. That's how quickly this thing can be done. So you don't have to wait around nearly as long. for some of these guys, but there's signing ceremonies. You wait on it. We will have things prepared for much of this ahead of time, as much as you can. Some of it you use, some of it you never sees the light of day. You get things prepared. For example, a new small chroma, you go, hey, you get a story ready, see what happens on signing day. If he signs with Auburn, you'll see the story. If he doesn't, then you'll never see it. But it has been there at some point. That's how you have to handle this thing on our side of things. You try to figure out as much as you can, try to get as much information as possible. And then you honestly, like the coaches have to wait and see what happens too, because they can be in contact, but only phone calls, text messages, and other schools are talking to guys too. It is a crazy time. Not much sleep to be had for those guys between now and probably 1-2 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah. Here's not necessarily a question, but more of a statement from Reagan. If we lose Donovan Starr and don't flip Naeem Offord, I may be a little upset. That would be fair. It would be fair to be upset about that. Granted, I still like what Auburn has in Shamar Arnaud and Blake Woodby. I don't think as of right now that Auburn loses Starr and doesn't flip Offord. I think if Auburn doesn't flip Naeem Offord, I think they can solidify things with where they stand with Donovan Starr. I think if they flip Naeem Offord, I think Donovan Starr will head elsewhere, and Alabama is the school that we're watching the closest right now. I think right now it kind of feels like a one or the other situation. And look, Donovan Starr is a fantastic player, great athlete, but Auburn has prioritized Naeem Offord as its top guy the whole way. And that's the guy that they are definitely pushing for going into Wednesday. Now we'll see. The Auburn staff is not going to – they want both. They're going to fight to keep Starr and get Naeem Offord. Mm-hmm. It's just, it does not feel like that's super realistic as of Monday night. Things could change.
Yeah, and when you look at this roster, and you're playing a true sophomore, a true freshman, and another true freshman as your top guys. Should have Champ Anthony back next year. J.C. Hart's a guy that's still developing, and you mentioned Shamar Arnaud is a guy that we absolutely love, and I think this Auburn staff has prioritized him since seeing him on campus in the summer. Blake Woodby's a guy that's been there this whole time and is a more compact, physical corner, a guy that can play nickel, do some things. You still have Devin Williams out there. He's a speedy guy that hadn't played much as a senior because of injuries. But you start to have some numbers, and I think, no question that people will fall off a cliff if they don't get one of those guys down the stretch. I think they will. If you don't, then it opens up some portal opportunities. I mean, that's the thing about this thing now. You absolutely want one of those guys. If you don't get them, you go somewhere else. It's the unfortunate part of the world we live in now, is that you look at it and you go, okay, well, there are some options if you don't do these things. And in the past, if you didn't get one of those guys, you're dead in the water. You're like, oh, well, this is what you have, and that's it. Now there'll be some opportunities, but I do feel like that you're right. I agree with you. I think they get one of those guys.
Staying on that topic a little bit, Red, do you think we were getting Naeem Offord because he was on a live with all Ohio State gear on? Look, I don't really care what gear a guy's wearing. I don't care what towel or gloves they have at a high school game. Guys just
seen that. Yeah, we've seen it time and time again. Guys wearing gear, wearing gloves, and doing those things, and it not really matter. It might matter. It may not. Nobody knows.
I still think Auburn is in a good position to get him going into Wednesday from all the feelers that I put out as of Monday night. We'll see if things change by the time we will be doing another one of these shows tomorrow at 8:30 as well. So we'll see if things change by then, and then we'll see if things change overnight going into Wednesday. But question from Matt, is Autry still locked in? Heard that mentioned a little bit. He did shut down his recruitment. Now I think Florida circled back as they're on this tear, and a lot of NIL money being infused after Billy Napier was confirmed to be coming back. So I do think that they did circle back on him a little bit. I still think Auburn will hold on to Malik Autry and will be okay there. So see about that one. Some quarterback questions here. There was one that was good along with this one, but here's Jonathan's. I pray that we get to keep Deuce Knight. Every feeler that I've put out has been very, very good about where Auburn feels, where they stand with Deuce. Now that's Monday night. Auburn felt pretty good about getting KJ Bolden last year on Monday night, and that changed by about Tuesday morning. So we'll see where
Yeah,
things go. But it feels like Auburn is in a pretty good position with him right now.
I agree. I think you look at it in opportunity. Guy that have a chance to come in January, go through spring practice, and have a chance to make a run. And obviously, I think he knows, everybody knows that Auburn's going to go try to get a portal quarterback too, but so is Ole Miss. I mean, Ole Miss is going to go get a portal quarterback. They got a guy that's played a little bit that looked pretty good as a true freshman. And so they've got a guy in place, and they'll go get a portal quarterback too. So no matter where you go, you're going to have to compete in the same time frame against the same types of guys. And I think the relationship with Auburn that's kind of been a key. The relationship with this class, with Alvin Henderson, with these other guys, I think is really important for Deuce Knight. And I think in the end, that's going to be a big part of things.
Sticking at quarterback here, multiple questions about the portal. This one, could Auburn sign multiple transfer quarterbacks similar to a guy with 1 year and one with multiple? Absolutely. Now, I think the biggest question with that one will be what happens with Hank Brown. Some reports went out on Sunday that he was going to, or that he intended to enter the transfer portal. From folks that we talked to, he had not informed Auburn that he was going to enter the portal. And then he went out on social media and posted as well that he was not in the portal. Now, things can obviously change, and that was not a, hey, I'm coming back for sure and everything. But for now, he's coming back to the room, and then you've got Walker, and assuming you sign Deuce as well, you would probably go for one guy. But if Hank were to leave, I think you would definitely get two.
Yeah, and it may depend on who that one guy is. That might determine what you're looking at. But yeah, I mean, I think you would like to have somebody else that played a little bit. Having a guy like Hank would be nice. But I think you look at it, and finding the right fit is going to be really important for them at all the portal spots. And so I don't think it's just quarterback. You go and trying to find the right fit at potentially an offensive tackle spot. Depending on what happens with a guy like Usman Chroma, maybe even a running back, you might find a spot there. But obviously up front on defense a little bit, maybe linebacker. I mean, there's going to be some potential portal things. Every year that goes past, you would hope that's less and less of a priority, but you're still going to go out and find a key guy or two for sure.
Yeah, question there from Anthony talking about portal quarterbacks. Do you think Auburn will go after Miller Moss, the former USC quarterback who got benched towards the end of the year? I think he will be a guy that they absolutely look at.
I think
talk
you have
with.
To kick the tires on just about everybody.
Yeah, kick the tires is perfect. I think you will look at him. I don't think he will be one of your absolute top guys, but he's a guy that you're gonna want to keep warm. And if a guy doesn't go in the portal that you think might or something, you might have to turn to him. So he's definitely one. Look, we have the transfer portal live tracker over at auburnundercover.com, and he's a guy that I have in names we're tracking at quarterback. Definitely keeping an eye on him. Question here from Johnny, back to high school recruiting a little bit. Any surprise flips you think? Let's take this question both ways. Any surprise flips out of Auburn's class? Any surprise flips into Auburn's class? We'll touch on both of those since he didn't clarify. Out of Auburn's class, I mean, I was watching Elijah Melendez pretty closely until about an hour and a half ago, and things were looking a little bit better for Auburn anyway, but he said that he's planning to sign with Auburn, confirmed that with me, so that was good news. Out of Auburn's class, I'm gonna keep an eye on a guy like Nate Marshall. That's not a huge surprise because he did visit Texas. But the fact that Texas lost Joseph Mbachu a week after he committed means that they're back in the market for another defensive lineman. And Texas is not a school that I would want to ever really be recruiting against in the NIL era. So I'm not saying he's going to flip. To clarify, I still think Auburn holds on to him, but that's a guy that I'm watching maybe a little closer than others.
Yeah, I think Jared Smith's another one. You look at South Carolina's kind of been the school from the get-go for him. Obviously, they've had a good year, and so I think they've remained right there. Again, I still think that location, being closer to home, is going to be really important to him, and I think opportunity is going to be big too. But that's probably another one that I look at going, yeah, just kind of worth watching a little bit to see what happens there.
In terms of any surprise flips into Auburn's class, I mean, there's four main guys that we're really keeping an eye on right now. Justice Terry, who is not committed anywhere. Naeem Offord committed to Ohio State. Darion Smith committed to Tennessee, and Usman Chroma committed to Georgia. None of those would be necessarily surprises. I think the biggest surprise out of those guys would be Chroma, because we think Auburn's in a good spot with Darion Smith, think they're in a good spot with Naeem Offord. So Chroma definitely one that would be a little more surprising than the others, but I mean,
maybe Justice Terry might be the biggest shocker.
Yeah,
that would happen. Just because Chroma's been a guy that has visited so much and has been open a little bit. So, yeah, those four are probably the ones that you look at the most. There's still some guys fringe guys that have visited that are committed elsewhere that, you start looking at and seeing maybe a guy like Zion Grady from Enterprise that go, hey, could that be a guy that comes through late? He's currently committed to Ohio State. Maybe there's some guys like that are still out there, but yeah, I think those are your main four guys.
Yeah, that's the thing. The night before signing day, you're probably calling a ton of guys just, hey, any last minute interest? I mean, that happens. Every school in the country does that.
Yes.
So, definitely we'll see. Patrick is in here asking for swag surf. That's not happening, Patrick. Although
not in the background, not tonight.
No, but we do appreciate your fancy graphic that you've got for us here on the YouTube channel. Shout out to him. And if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel and you're watching this, definitely make sure to do that. It's totally free. It does not cost you anything. And at auburnundercover.com, you have a couple more hours left if you're watching live on Monday night to take advantage of our Black Friday, Cyber Monday special, 75% off, less than $30 for an entire year. So the best deal that we run all year. This is actually a really good question from Bradley. I really like this. Outside of the obvious positions we need to recruit for, what could be a trap position if we don't sign well or improve from the portal? My answer would probably instantly be offensive tackle. If you don't get one, really top guy out of the portal at that position, I think you're in a tricky spot. We saw what happened where they did not hit on Percy Lewis. No disrespect to the kid, but they did not hit on that transfer portal addition. And then Dylan Wade had to slide back outside. And, Braden Joyner actually did well and got inserted at left guard, but it kind of messed up their plans of wanting D Wade to be inside and having a tackle transfer. So that's one.
Yeah. And I think you think back to last year, I think everybody's learning how to deal with the portal and how different it is than high school recruiting. I think Auburn learned in offensive tackles last year, Christian. We tracked offensive tackle after offensive tackle and guys that Auburn was hoping to get on campus. And, honestly, Percy Lewis was the fourth guy that they basically said, we've got to have somebody. Let's take this guy. And so I think you look this year and I think offensive tackle monetarily priority. I think it is right. You make quarterback right here. I think offensive tackle is right there. And you go, whatever it takes to get one of those guys that you're going to have to do whatever it takes. And I think they realize that.
Here's one from Jambo. Haven't heard this name in a while. We're going to flip Babalola? No, unless something last second changes. Haven't heard his name in a while. He's pretty locked in with Michigan.
It doesn't feel that way, especially with Michigan. Beating Ohio State last weekend and the money that is coming out of there, apparently. Obviously, quarterback wasn't the only position because they're starting to get some traction with other guys. It feels like they're making a massive effort to go match Ohio State's $20 million roster and do it in one recruiting class.
Here's one from Dre. If Auburn finishes with a top 5 class, should consider it a victory. I would consider that an absolute victory. I think that would be, and I think Auburn staff would feel the same way. I think that'd be a fantastic haul for them, especially given what happened this fall and this season.
I think you look at it and going the back-to-back classes. I mean, even the first year, you look at what they were able to do, and you think about, Braden Joyner was previously committed. They kept him, but you think about Kelger, Falk, Connor, Lou, Kay, and Lee. You go, just out of that group already. You're talking about the guys that you brought in out of that group that are playing key roles for this team already, and how impactful that's been. Sylvester Smith, some of these other guys. And then you add the class last year. If you top that and add another, I'm gonna say top 6 or 7 even. You stack classes like that on top of each other. That's how you start to get going and keep going in the right direction.
Here's one. Who is the most likely flip? My answer would be Darion Smith, the Tennessee defensive line commit from St. Francis, with a name offered behind him. That would be my 1 and 2, and in that order.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably the most likely scenario the thing has happened. And like I said, kind of feel good about both those guys, but I would put Darion Smith probably as 1.
One from Felix. Does the QB from, I'm assuming you meant to say Wazoo, from Washington State coming to Auburn? Well, he hasn't entered the portal yet, although everyone thinks it's going to happen now that his OC has left for Oklahoma. Oklahoma looks like it could be a
I would say
school to beat.
Oklahoma would be a heavy favorite right now. And the question you have is what does their roster look like? Does the guy go, hey, I'm going to go? I mean, he knows if he goes to Oklahoma, he's going to be the starting quarterback with his OC there. And Jackson Arnold then becomes a guy that you look at and go, okay, what's that guy look like potentially as a portal guy if he were to leave? Because it's honestly hard to figure out exactly what Oklahoma quarterback play looks like when you have none of your top 5 wide receivers available for a whole season. It's almost like an incomplete other than you had to play. But yeah, I would think that Oklahoma would be a pretty prohibitive favorite right now if and when he were to enter the portal.
Here's one from Plow. Are there any offensive tackles looking at to replace Dice? None that I've really heard of. There's Chaston Brown, who's a top 247 offensive tackle, previously committed to UCF. Asked about him because he did visit a couple of times this fall and was told not really anything there, and they have not reached out to him. So that's not one that I'm really tracking. I mean, Auburn is still fighting for Tavares Dice, but I'd put the odds at getting him back in the class pretty low, to be honest. So no one really, in all honesty, you were already looking at going to get 1 to 2 offensive tackles in the transfer portal. Now you probably just get another guy who's younger as well to go with the likes of, Tyler Johnson, Seth Wilfred, Favor Edwin, some of those guys as well that are currently on campus. Here's one from Jaws. Expecting any big surprises? Not expecting, but it could be a surprise to us, I suppose. We'll see how things develop over the next couple of days.
Yeah, I wonder about a guy like Saquon Miles, the junior college kid originally from Greenville. He's committed to Mississippi State, offensive tackle. You wonder if that's a guy that you might go, hey, he knows Auburn. He would know it enough that it wouldn't, you haven't really been in him on a ton, but maybe that's a guy you make a run at. As for Dice, Christian, after we watched him play, I think he could have eventually been a tackle. I'm not so certain that he wasn't going to wind up being a guard. I think he could be a good player. I'm just not sure that it's going to be outside on the edge on the offensive line down the road. So I think for them, they already knew they had to go get probably a pair of offensive tackles from the portal anyway, even if you bring Dice into play.
Already touched on this a little bit, but to answer Dre's question, how you guys feeling about Auburn's chances to flip the D lineman from Tennessee, Darion Smith from St. Francis? Feeling really good. I would put his percentage pretty high, to be honest. I expect him to be in the class, and I felt that way for a while. Here's another one from Bradley. Does Malzahn to Florida State as offensive coordinator pull any talent from us? Thinking from a standpoint of similarity of offensive styles with Freeze and Malzahn. I mean, maybe in some recruiting battles next year, but it won't be in the 25 class.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to have a whole lot of impact. And while they are similar a little bit, Gus is much more ground heavy, and I mean, I think like everybody, they'd like to have an athletic quarterback that can make plays with their legs, but I mean, this is a much different passing game than what Gus Malzahn will do at Florida State.
Here's one from Kyle. Still solid, but Derek Smith. Yes, he did not show up at the Iron Bowl over the weekend as expected, as he was expected to visit, but he did not show up, I should say. And have felt like Auburn is in a pretty good position with him and his brother Eric for a while now. So that's
we were there a couple of weeks ago, and everything seemed great for those guys. They were pretty much all on board, and like I said, still got to get to Wednesday, but still feel good about those guys for sure.
Let's see. Here's one. Rather have Caden Salter than Miller Moss.
I think there's a bunch of guys. Obviously, Caden Salter would give you a guy that knows the offense and is able to hit the ground running a lot quicker. Did not have a particularly good year this year. He did in 2023. Had a really good year. I don't think there's any question that's one of the guys that will be looked at in this role. But I think the quarterback position is going to have a bunch of guys impacted here, and especially after maybe this weekend, I think you'll start to see a lot more names filter in as guys start to potentially move around some.
Yeah, well, I mean, the portal isn't even open yet. It doesn't open for a week. It's just players saying that they're going to enter, so that way schools can reach out to their agent, stuff like that.
Yeah, there's going to be a whole lot of activity this time next week, and then leading up that next little window.
Here's one from Josh talking about the portal. Punter, field goal kicker. I don't know if you need a punter because you're going to have John Allen McGuire coming in out of high school, and you have Gabe Russo. Both played in All-American games in high school. Right? Well, John McGuire will play in one. Field goal kicker is interesting. I do think that's a position you might need to take a look at if the right guy pops in the portal.
Yeah, it just kind of depends on maybe what you feel like the prognosis is for Alex McPherson. That's the first thing. And I agree with Hugh Freeze. I think Towns Magoo is going to be really good.
Yes.
I've seen freshmen struggle. We've seen that before. And this is a guy that he's only kicked for a couple of years. He was more soccer and has only played football for a couple of years. And so I think he has a bright future. I don't think they've given up on him at all. I mean, as a matter of fact, he was warming up on the sideline Saturday. And so I think he's still going to be a really good kicker. But you're right. You may go again for insurance, but you may have a guy that you keep for insurance and Ian Vachon. He was 6 for 8 this year. And so that may be a guy that you go, hey, you already have a little bit of insurance there and keeping him. And, but again, that's one that's really hard to say because of the questions surrounding Alex McPherson at the moment.
Yeah, and definitely hope the best for him and hope that he can get healthy and
100%.
That issue.
Field goal kicking isn't the biggest part of the deal. Let's get him back healthy and feeling better.
Yes. Here's one from Dre. Said, don't have the credentials of these guys, but I know people tied to Justice Terry, and I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up in the class. If this hits, you heard it here first. You did hear it here first from Dre. I think Auburn has a chance, but for a 5-star in-state kid from Georgia, I'm always going to favor Georgia until it's not. And a note for those that are unaware, and we've mentioned this over at auburnundercover.com, Justice Terry will not sign until Friday, December 6th. So you will not see news on that on signing day on the 4th. You'll have to wait a couple days for his announcement there. Sticking at defensive tackle, one from Alex, is Auburn good with Antonio Coleman? Yep, he's locked in. No concerns there. He should sign on Wednesday. Here's one from ML. Do we hold on to Elijah Melendez? Yes. Talked with him shortly before this show.
30 minutes ago. No, it's a little bit more than that now.
Yeah. But head over to auburnundercover.com. Have a story with him. He said, I'm signing with Auburn. They're doing a ceremony at his school on Thursday, but he's sending in the paperwork on Wednesday. And so Auburn is appeared to have held off Oregon there, which is good news. Is that linebacker room is definitely, speaking of portal spots, that's a spot you definitely need to get a veteran or two.
Correct.
With everything that you're losing there. And also at portal, will we get just one portal tight end?
I think it's going to be 2. I really do. I think they're going to look for a couple of portal guys, maybe an older guy to go along with Brandon Frazier, who right now is expected to return, which is huge news. I mean, he was going to be a big part of things this year. And then I think you could see another redshirt sophomore, redshirt junior type of guy that gives you maybe 2 years to bridge the gap to those young guys that you're bringing in. But yeah, I think there's going to be 2 tight ends in the portal.
Here's a question. Any chance with Jerome Miles, the 5-star wide receiver from Utah, was committed to USC. Now he's predicted to go to Texas A&M. The answer is no. Auburn has not really been involved there for a while.
The hard part about those things is if you have a shot with somebody, it's normally going to be somebody that has visited a couple of times, even if you're not, maybe not on the radar. It's somebody that has been in and is familiar with you. They hadn't had a whole lot of back and forth with Jerome Miles.
Smitty, where do you see this recruiting class finishing? They're at number 5 right now. Naeem Offord gets you 1 spot on his own, and Darion Smith would kind of counter. I think Auburn adds Naeem and adds Darion Smith and loses Donovan Starr, at least as of right now. So I'll say they finish 4th.
I think 4 to 6, and like I said, 4 to 6 would be. I mean, that'd be huge considering that you would have then back-to-back classes to put you where you need to be.
We're going to take a handful of questions here more and then wrap things up. There's a lot of questions that we already touched on earlier in the show, so apologies. We're not going to keep answering them. Y'all can just go back and watch what we touched on earlier in the show. Here's one from Halo. Top 3 recruits you think might flip from Auburn? Jared Smith, Nate Marshall,
Donovan Starr.
Donovan Starr, yeah. Yes. So
that's probably the 3 guys that you would say would be the biggest threats at the moment for Auburn.
You would put those 3, Donovan Starr at the top, Jared Smith maybe 2, Nate Marshall maybe 3.
2A and 2B for those guys. Probably.
And then you would have maybe a guy like Deuce Knight a tier below that or something. I don't know. Do you think they will look at Fluff Bothwell from South Alabama if he goes into the portal?
I think that would be a guy that would get some eyes for sure. Man, really good in-state running back. That's a big physical guy. That's Chris. We talked about it now for a while. Alvin Henderson is a guy that gives you guys like you've had similar, like a Jarquez Hunter type, a Damari Alston type, Jeremiah Cobb type, Alvin Hunter. I mean, Alvin Henderson kind of fits in that mold. Usman Chroma is a bigger, more physical hammer type back. If they don't get that guy, I think they will go try to find another bigger, more physical back. And Fluff Bothwell could be one. A guy to watch if a guy like Tulane's, Mekhi Hughes goes in. That's a guy from Huffman. That could be a potential guy if he were to go in, from Tulane, something like that.
Name offered.
Yep. Course. So I mean, so there's some potential guys out there that I think Fluff Bothwell would be a guy that I think if he were to enter the portal is going to get a lot of attention.
Looking, running back is not a position I'm overly concerned about. You can always find one of those guys, and they're not at a premium in the portal. You're not going to break the bank to get one.
Right. And I think it would be a certain type of guy, and I think he would fit that mold.
All right, let's grab 3 more questions here. One from Red again. Any news on Anquan Fagans? There was a report out there today that Alabama was pushing for him, which obviously, I mean, he visited there over the weekend. He took an official visit to Alabama this fall. But Jason, with Charles Kelly here, I'm pretty much always going to give the benefit of the doubt to Charles Kelly when it comes to recruiting a guy, especially a guy that he has committed and he's known the family for years and years and years now.
I still feel really good about that. I saw his mom and dad. They were in the front row behind me when I was shooting photos Saturday, and so I still feel good about him. A guy that's been there, and every time we see him, he goes, "Hey, don't worry, I'm coming." And so, trust him at his word that he'll be signing on Wednesday, and then turn around and play in a state championship game on Wednesday night. That's going to add a lot of this crazy stuff that goes on. We've got state championship games this week in Alabama.
Here's one from Scott. Are they going after a big-time portal wide receiver to replace KLS? Yes, I think they will add at least one portal receiver, maybe another second or third guy, depending on what happens with the guys you currently have on roster. It would be hard to project a guy like Caleb Burton coming back after his role diminished and he really didn't play this year at all. What happens with a guy like Camden Brown, who did play but not quite as much, especially with those younger freshmen that came in. So what happens with those guys depends on how many you get out of the portal, but I definitely think they'll get at least one receiver.
I think just from a straight number standpoint, you're gonna need some more numbers because they were even limited a little bit numbers. Now you'll have Perry and Bryce Kane stepping more into a role next year, but then you start looking at it going, you'd like to have 8-9 guys at a minimum probably, and you'd still need a couple of guys even with an addition to Derek Smith coming in. And so and you got 2 commitments coming in, but you still might need a couple of guys to add to that class. So I think you'll go after a maybe an older, more veteran guy, and if you could find another KLS, that'd be a pretty darn good spot to be in.
Yeah, it'd be hard to find another one of those guys.
Correct.
I mean, he had a special season. We figured he would be good. Didn't necessarily think he would be quite that good. I mean, he finished 19 yards away from a 1,000-yard season with the struggles that Auburn had at times this year on offense. That's pretty impressive. Here's one from Josh. Would $10 million get Arch Manning to Auburn if they win the Natty this year? If they gave him $10 million straight up right now for 1 year, maybe it would. I don't think he's leaving Texas, but maybe if you had $10 million sitting around.
Yeah, we don't know how much he's getting to stay at Texas either. I mean, nobody's paying a quarterback $10 million a year. No, I mean that's
not in college football.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. Now, you might go 2 or 3 for a top guy, and I'm not saying that Auburn might not go that far this year for a guy, but it doesn't feel like it's going to be Arch Manning. Quinn Ewers, I think as much as he's going through, will go pro, and then it'll be Arch Manning's job. That's what I feel like anyway.
We will do one last question here from Patrick. Patrick, you are fired for asking this question in the chat, but he said Chipotle order, bowl, brown rice, half and half on the beans usually, chicken, hot salsa, sour cream, and cheese. That's the go-to order from me. So with that, we will wrap up the show there on signing day eve, 2 nights away, or 2 days away, I should say, from signing day, as things are getting ready to wrap up. Appreciate everyone for tuning in here on the show tonight. If you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, definitely make sure to do that. That does not cost you anything. And you'll be able to come back when we're live tomorrow night. I'm sure by the time we start tomorrow night at 8:30, everything will have changed. 3 guys will have flipped to Auburn and 4 guys will have flipped away, and madness will have ensued before signing day. Now, not really, but I'm sure look, a lot can change in 24 hours. So we will see you guys again tomorrow night at 8:30, as it'll be the official signing day eve and previewing everything at signing day. By that point, our live updates for signing day at auburnundercover.com will already be up. Planning to put those up tomorrow evening for people to get going and get ready for the big day on Wednesday. So appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. Jason, anything that I'm missing? I think we're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like I said, just kind of preparing for the storm, and Wednesday can sometimes be a flurry early, and then it can be a slow day, obviously, kind of depending on how long some of these things take. So everybody remain patient, and as think about Animal House, remain calm if you can, and we'll see when we get through Wednesday.
Yep, we'll see you guys back here again tomorrow night. Appreciate everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you later.